My name is Brian Loftin, and I attend the Rolling Meadows campus. My introduction and involvement in religion at a young age was rather sporadic. I had people always talking about you'll have that moment. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what that moment would be. I'd fallen back in love with the sport of soccer, and I wanted to pursue that as a profession. I ended up transitioning to Kansas City and walking on to the indoor team there. Met a girl that I had known in high school. Ended up getting married. We had children pretty quickly. That was a tough thing, being 24, starting a career. I could find 100 hours worth of time to work and focus on that, but I couldn't find 10 minutes to come home and engage with my kids or engage with my wife. I turned to drinking and eventually led to infidelity. Where it got more intense for me is as my body started to break down, and prescription medication became kind of a hook that continued for me. Eventually our marriage grew to the point where I just think I'd done so much damage at that point. There was no coming back for that relationship, and we made the tough decision to separate and divorce. And it's probably one of the most difficult and devastating things that's ever happened in my life. To go up there and talk to my kids, knowing that I came from a home, fortunately, a little bit later in life, where my parents had split, and just knowing that's not what I wanted to repeat. Fortunately, at that point, I had met someone, and they were going through a similar situation. Through that, we really developed a really close connection and a bond. So I ended up getting married to Nicole probably 2 years later. The hardest part certainly came when Nicole and I had our first kid. Certainly with my older daughter, she would see what I was doing with these young kids. I could see it in her face, and eventually she said to me, like, I never had that, I never had that party. I never had you down on the floor with me, playing, doing those things. And certainly on the main level, I knew it was all of my own doing. Inside, I still felt so empty and just filled with a lot of guilt and a lot of pain, and just not knowing how to get rid of that. Some good friends of ours, they were Harvest folks and had been there for a long time. The Easter service comes up, and she says, hey, we should really go to the Easter service. I think you should come along. We walked into Harvest, and I was like, okay, I'm coming, I'm doing this, but there's nothing here for me. And then Pastor James gets into the sermon itself, and he really just starts breaking things down in a way I've never heard talked about before.
It all comes down to this. Either you have bowed the knee to Jesus Christ and believed in your heart and confessed with your mouth, or you haven't. Either you've accepted Christ in your life, or you have not.
And it's really that simple. That's all you have to do. How can you say you have Christ in your life if you've never had this moment that I'd heard about that you needed? And what do you mean salvation? What do you mean he can take away, the things that you've done? All of a sudden I make eye contact with, turns out to be Pastor Luis. And it's like I got pulled straight to him, and I don't know what happened. I literally welled up and started with tears. He said, where are you in your journey, with Christ? Like, how did you get to the church? And I said to him, I don't have a journey. I don't have Christ in my life. He just looked at me and he said, well, the question is, are you ready? I was like, ready for what? He's like, are you ready to accept, Jesus Christ in your life? And I'm like, I'm standing outside of door 6 in the hallway thinking, what do you mean, like right here, like right now? And I haven't had my moment yet. He goes, there's no moment. He said, if you're ready, let's do this. He put his hand on my shoulder, and we went through the sinner's prayer. And he looked at me and he said, that's it. You're saved. And I broke into tears. It was just, think about it now, and it was just so releasing. All this weight and all of this just negativity and just doubt about myself and what I'd been, and that I could never be good enough. That just completely shifted off of me. for the kids to see me now, at the church, taking them to church, engaged in the process has made them, want to talk about it more and be more expressive. The whole time I was thinking the moment was something that was supposed to happen before, and then I would say, okay, I've had this moment, now I'm going to give my life to Christ. And the moment was the actual event and the time that I gave my life to Christ. There's the birth of my children, which were great moments. And there were certainly opportunities to win championships and do those things were moments. But this is something where you realize it's everlasting. He's always been there. He was always there for me. He was waiting for me to make the decision to move forward. I wish I hadn't taken 44 years to do it, but man, I'm happy that I did.